Originally, I was going to start this presentation by tapping into the memories of your most recent flying experience, traveling to Paris to attend this very conference. However, given the fact that most of us haven't set foot on an airplane in months, I will begin with a question. Did you know that 80% of all airplane crashes are caused by human error? When you hear me say this, you probably have a vision of a pilot pressing the wrong button on an overhead panel, right? Immediately, alerts are being triggered, lights are flashing, and the airplane goes into an uncontrollable nosedive, while passengers scream and frantically reach for yellow oxygen masks. Or you think, but flying is so safe these days. Computers do all the work. Well, as you will see shortly, things are far more complicated than the notion of a simple mistake and computers doing all the work. Welcome to my presentation. My name is Pascale Schmid, and I am a PhD candidate and sessional academic at Griffith University's Queensland College of Art in Brisbane, Australia. Today, I would like to take you on a virtual journey into the world of typography in flight safety. In the world we left behind, and the one we hope to return to, millions of passengers entrust their lives to two highly specialized individuals operating fragile machinery capable of lifting tons of metal into the air to satisfy an ever-growing demand for a fast and seamless travel experience. However, while the passengers' concerns lie predominantly with matters of comfort and entertainment, behind the bulletproof flight deck door, concealed from the public, the pilots face an increasing number of operational, technical, physiological, and psychological challenges which affect their ability to function within the fast-paced aviation industry. This applies in particular to phases of high workload, such as takeoffs and landings, during which the occurrence of incidents or accidents is most likely. On a micro level, the demand the above places on pilots affects their ability to quickly read and understand information, especially when time is of the essence. Further, the current shift from paper to electronic documentation creates new challenges as manuals, maps, charts, and checklists are collated into commonly named electronic flight bags, or EFBs, which have revolutionized workflows on the flight deck. As you can imagine, this also requires a change in typographic practices to ensure optimal legibility. Consequently, in an attempt to bridge the gap between the complexities of human adaptation to new media in the commercial flight deck and typographic optimization of documents within EFBs, my PhD project focuses on the design of a dedicated variable typeface family named V1 through a user-focused approach. Its variability will allow for individual fonts to adapt to a selection of user-related, circumstantial, and environmental conditions. Okay, now you know why I think this project is so important. Simply, I am fascinated with flight safety and how typography can contribute to a safer environment. And while everything that goes up must come down, it is how the ups and downs are achieved that ensure my and so many others' good fortune. So I will present my project in 3 parts. First, an overview of the pilot's changing role and the challenges that come with the adaptation to new technology. Second, my research to date. And third, I will be discussing the development progress of V1. The romantic notion of the brave aviator defying gravity in often spectacular flying contraptions is rapidly becoming a distant memory as the first airlines were transformed from early pioneers of the skies to the large-scale global businesses we know today. Pilots increasingly find themselves under pressure originating from managerial decisions which are predominantly based on cost-cutting strategies rather than considerations of well-being. Further, the confines of the flight deck, financial hardship due to debt incurred by training costs and reduced income, professional requirements, and overall health challenges such as fatigue play a crucial role in pilot performance. Whereas these factors are important considerations for my PhD project, the main focus lies on the transition of the pilot from airman or woman in touch with the manual act of flying to the instrument pilot, relying heavily on complex computer systems. Psychologist Herschel Leibowitz argues that due to rapid technological progress, the role of the pilot began to transform from a discipline defined by strength and endurance into an activity requiring sensory, perceptual, memory, and motor skills. This notion is shared by psychologist Kathleen L. Mosier, who adds that the modern flight deck primarily requires cognitive skills as it has transformed into a hybrid ecology consisting of naturalistic and electronic elements. This, according to Professor of Engineering Heinz Bartsch, turns the human into the weakest link, the personification of human error. However, Professor Sidney Dekker, pilot and human factors and safety specialist, warns that attributing accidents or incidents to human error is too simple, as it is in fact a symptom of deeper organizational issues which could reoccur at any given time. The transition from paper to electronic documentation on the flight deck may be regarded as such a symptom, as established cognitive workflows are disrupted due to the promise of faster information access, weight reduction, and simplification of flight operation, while factors such as training and distractions caused by the device's operation are being neglected. The crash of a FedEx airplane in 1997, which was attributed to the pilot's misconception of landing distances provided by a precursor of the EFB, demonstrates this. My project seeks to determine whether the design of a dedicated variable typeface family can facilitate pilot information processing, understanding, and navigation of documentation within electronic flight bags. In short, can changing the legibility of text read by pilots save lives? My research follows a practice-based methodology while operating within an interpretivist paradigm. Research methods include, but are not limited to, cognitive mapping to gain an initial overview of the actors involved, a systematic quantitative literature review to identify the status quo of publications concerned with electronic documentation, pilot interviews to gain an understanding of the issues that lead to reduced legibility, and typeface design in response to identified gaps and common design principles to improve digital legibility. Additionally, usability testing will be conducted during various stages of the project, and industry feedback will be sought to ensure a successful alliance between user inputs and typographic principles. Further, the design of the typeface will be informed by discussions with pilots to ensure the fulfillment of a key objective, the creation of V1 with pilots rather than for them. The research to date focuses on 4 key areas: typography and flight safety, user-centered design, cross-disciplinary research, and legibility studies. Despite the aviation industry's recognition of typography being an important factor in relation to pilot information processing, typographic choices have been based on limited research. In an attempt to bridge the gap between basic research about typography and the kind of information needed by designers of flight deck documentation, Dr. Asaf Degani, former senior scientist at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, developed a set of recommendations that have become a key guideline over the past 30 years, with little to no competition. Further, typographic decisions have been subject to inheritance. This is evident in the Boeing company's preference for Futura, which was used on the very first checklist and is still in use today to label displays on the flight deck. Last, typographic considerations have often been dismissed due to the belief that text on checklists should fit onto a single page for instant overview. However, other studies have discovered this has led to text being displayed 57% smaller than recommended by human engineering criteria, which is particularly concerning in abnormal situations where the pilot's ability to quickly decipher information is crucial. The crash of Boeing's B-17 prototype during a test flight in 1935 led to the realization that flying had become too complicated for one person to remember all steps involved, which in turn led to the introduction of checklists on the flight deck. Fast forward to the 21st century, airplanes have become flying computers human operators have to adapt to. Therefore, engineers Dr. Micah R. Ensley and Dr. Deborah G. Jones advocate for a human-centered approach, adapting technology to the human operator to avoid more complexity, more cognitive load, and catastrophic errors. They argue further that systems need to be designed dynamically to support rapidly changing situations. This notion directly correlates with my project and its focus on the integration of pilots within the design process of V1. Further, the variability of the typeface, as well as the creation of two versions, one for routine operation and one for abnormal situations, is anticipated to promote pilot information processing and ultimately decision-making. My research has revealed that disciplinary segregation plays an important role in the relationship between typography and flight safety. Most publications on the topic have been written by engineers or medical professionals with no background in typography. Recently reviewed literature concerned with typography and electronic documentation in other high-risk disciplines, such as medicine or the shipping industry, rely heavily on Degani's report from 1992, presumably because it is regarded as the most comprehensive resource available, and because other disciplines use the highly regulated aviation industry as a blueprint for their newly evolving documentation needs. Nevertheless, this is a problematic practice due to the age of the report and because it was originally written for printed documentation. Further, to my knowledge, all electronic documentation has been designed, produced, and tested by members of the respective disciplines. Hence, ignore common design principles which could contribute to the creation of more user-friendly resources. I'm not telling you anything new by saying that for text to communicate information, it must be legible. That is, letters recognized, words formed, and sentences interpreted. Nevertheless, in the context of legibility studies in an aviation setting, the above-mentioned lack of typographic expertise led to research, such as a study comparing Helvetica with Times New Roman, through user testing among 120 pilots with various levels of experience and ages. The result was in clear favor of Helvetica. However, this kind of method is fundamentally flawed for several reasons. Helvetica may be, depending on the situation, medium and environment, more legible than Times New Roman. On the other hand, according to experts in the field, such as Professor Sophie Bayer, there are more variations between two typefaces than the presence or absence of serifs. Further, the degree of previous familiarity with the typefaces is unknown, and the sample group is too diverse in experience and age, which also affects the study result. These findings are vital for my project in order to create the most suitable testing environment with clearly defined parameters. The design process for the new variable typeface family V1 for use in electronic documentation on the flight deck began with my honors degree in 2018, during which I created the prototype. In 2019, I was fortunate to present the prototype during the TypeCrit as part of the ATypI conference in Tokyo. I received valuable feedback from type designers Veronica Burian, Cyrus Highsmith, and Gary Leonidas. Three key issues were identified. First, an inconsistency in stroke transitions in lowercase letters with rounded features such as B, D, H, M, N, P, Q, and U. Second, the side bearings of each letter were too narrow. And third, a lack of identity. Reflecting on the experts' advice, all issues are being addressed in the second version. However, as the research progresses, I am keeping the potential for V1 to become a hybrid typeface in mind, depending on benefits for legibility. At this stage, I am in the process of reviewing each letter regarding stroke thickness, which appear to be too thin overall. So far, the increase in stroke thickness has resulted in a stronger appearance, while a slight extension of the vertex in the capital A has opened up counter space. This treatment will be replicated in the vertices and apices of the capital letters M, N, V, and W, and is anticipated to allow V1 to start displaying more identity. In conclusion, my research into the role of typography within flight safety and how the design of a dedicated variable typeface family can be used to improve a pilot's ability to quickly decipher and process information has only just begun. The complexities behind contemporary flight operations, which form the foundation of V1, are multi-layered, and while all play their part, the most important aspect of the project is the exchange with and input from the pilots themselves. This will ensure the creation of a typeface that facilitates workflows. I am delighted to have had the opportunity to share my research with you. Hopefully, I have been able to spark your interest in what's going on behind closed cockpit doors. So next time you fly, rest assured that your typographic needs are being taken care of. Thank you, and have a nice flight. Yes, so there you go. Please do ask questions if you have any, and I'll be happy to answer them. Or comments. I always welcome comments. Oh, it stopped. Excellent. So Sandra is saying, congrats, it's great. Go to research. Good luck. Thank you very much. It is really interesting because to my knowledge, I'm kind of the only person who is doing it and who's also looking into the topic since that early paper in the 90s. So I've got a question here from Frederick. Has COVID-19 affected your work in other ways, such as by companies pulling out? Yes, it does have affected. Does had an effect on my studies because I was planning to do some flight simulator observations mid-year, and of course with COVID-19 breaking out, that came to a halt, and it's postponed for, well, the foreseeable future. So probably I'll give it another go next year. But instead, I've diverted the research a little bit to do some interviews with pilots and getting my focus group together so I can get the feedback from the pilots themselves. Yes, so Dave asks, have you seen B16 font commissioned by Airbus? Yes, I have seen that one. And this font, to my knowledge, was commissioned for the flight deck itself, for the panels, to label the panels, rather than use in manuals. But yeah, it's a very interesting case study for me as well. So Sandra was saying, you have a previous experience in font design, or is it first challenge in type design. And yes, I have designed another typeface before, and that was during my university degree, but that was a completely different typeface. It was based off a medieval script, so it's completely different going from that to a sans serif typeface and a body copy typeface. So yes, it was interesting proportion wise. So it did help with this new typeface, but they were just two completely different projects. Well, if there's no more questions, I thank you for attending, and it's just very exciting to share my research with you.